There comes a time when the air feels heavy, when the noise of the world is deafening even in silence, and when the soul whispers a question that cannot be ignored: is this truly all there is? Most pass through life without ever pausing to listen to that voice. They drown it in distractions, smother it with routine, and numb it with temporary pleasures. But deep down, the ache remains. It is the ache of knowing that life was never meant to be lived in fragments, never meant to be endured in a haze of fatigue and doubt, never meant to feel like a cycle that repeats without meaning. There is something more, something that has been waiting in the shadows of awareness, and it reveals itself only to those bold enough to search within. It is an energy shift so powerful, so profound, that once awakened, it reshapes everything. The way you think, the way you act, the way you breathe. It all transforms. The world appears the same, yet it bends differently because you are no longer the same. This shift is not a miracle to be stumbled upon, nor is it a gift reserved for the chosen. It is not hidden in some distant place, waiting to be discovered by chance. It is here in every heartbeat, in every thought, in every breath, waiting to be claimed by the one who dares to stop sleepwalking through existence. Why do so few experience it? Because the world has conditioned people to believe they must live small. From childhood, energy is scattered, pulled in 1,000 directions, consumed by fears that are not theirs, by doubts planted by others, by rules designed to keep them compliant rather than alive. Slowly, piece by piece, the fire within is buried under layers of hesitation and resignation. People learn to accept exhaustion as normal, to label their unfulfilled potential as just life, to confuse survival with living. And in doing so, they never even glimpse the power that could rise if they reclaimed their energy. But there is a truth that refuses to be silencing. Human beings were not created for mediocrity. They were not designed to merely exist, to drag their feet through a dull repetition of days, waiting for moments of temporary relief. They were built for greatness, built to radiate strength. They built to create and conquer and thrive. The evidence of this truth is seen in those rare individuals who break through, who seem to command life itself, who move with a force that cannot be ignored. They are not different in what they were given. They are different in what they chose to claim. This energy shift is the turning point. It is the invisible dividing line between those who drift aimlessly and those who rise with purpose. Once it ignites, fatigue no longer feels like destiny. It becomes fuel. Obstacles no longer appear as immovable walls. They become proof of strength. Fear no longer dictates choices. It becomes the compass pointing to growth. With this shift, life stops happening to you and begins to happen through you. Every cell, every thought, every breath begins to vibrate with clarity and determination. Most will never hear of it, not because it is hidden, but because it demands courage to seek it. It demands a willingness to question everything that has been accepted as normal. It demands honesty about the ways energy has been wasted, on procrastination, on comparison, on clinging to stories that no longer serve. And because it asks so much, many turn away before they ever begin. Yet for the few who dare, everything changes. The exhaustion that once weighed them down becomes the spark of awakening. The emptiness that once hollowed them out becomes the fertile ground for growth. The silence that once suffocated them becomes the space where power is born. It begins with awareness. Awareness that life is not meant to be tolerated, but to be mastered. Awareness that energy is not infinite, and that where it flows, life follows. Awareness that every moment spent in hesitation is a moment stolen from destiny. And in that awareness, a choice arises: to remain bound by invisible chains, or to break free by reclaiming the energy that was always there. This is not a soft shift. It does not arrive gently. It tears apart illusions, dismantles the false comfort of small living, and demands a higher standard. It forces confrontation with truths that have been avoided, with potential that has been ignored, with strength that has been left dormant. It does not ask politely. It roars. And in that roar, the ordinary dissolves, and the extraordinary begins. The most powerful energy shift you've never heard of is not waiting in the future. It is not something you stumble upon by accident. It is here in this very moment, vibrating in every heartbeat, hidden in plain sight. It is the choice to stop giving away your power and to start owning it fully. Once claimed, nothing remains the same. Once ignited, it cannot be extinguished. It is the rebirth of power, the awakening of destiny, and the beginning of a life that refuses to bow to limits. This is the call that rises when silence feels unbearable. This is the truth that surges when the question, "Is this all I was meant for?" demands an answer. The answer is no. You were meant for more, and the shift is how you claim it. The greatest misconception about power is that it lies somewhere outside, waiting to be discovered in opportunities, possessions, or approval from others. This is why most people never taste it. They search endlessly in the wrong direction. They chase validation, chase status, chase wealth, believing these external trophies will finally give them the surge they long for. But the truth is undeniable. The most profound source of power is not out there. It does not belong to chance, circumstance, or luck. It lives within, and it awakens the moment you decide to stop scattering your energy and start reclaiming it. Energy is not just about physical stamina. It is not only the ability to stay awake longer, to work harder, or to keep going when tired. That is only the surface. True energy is deeper. It is emotional resilience, mental clarity, spiritual alignment. It is the force that allows you to face storms without breaking, to hold focus in the midst of chaos, to rise when everything around you tries to pull you down. And the shocking truth is that most people already possess enough of this energy to transform their lives. The problem is not lack, it is waste. Look closely and the patterns become clear. Energy is bled away by fear, drained by doubt, stolen by hesitation. Every time the mind lingers on the past or worries about the future, energy seeps out. Every time comparison takes hold when someone looks at another's life and devalues their own, energy escapes like water leaking from a cracked vessel. Every time procrastination when indecision paralyzes, every time excuses disguise themselves as reasons, energy is lost. And when energy is wasted, power is scattered. No wonder so many feel weak, uncertain, and trapped. It is not because they were born powerless. It is because they never learned to protect, gather, and channel the energy that was already theirs. But something extraordinary happens when energy is reclaimed. When the decision is made to no longer feed fear, to no longer nourish doubt, to no longer surrender to hesitation, the shift begins. Suddenly, the body feels lighter not because the world changed, but because the weight of wasted energy is lifted. The mind sharpens not because life became easier, but because clarity returned when noise was silenced. The spirit expands not because external conditions shifted, but because internal alignment was restored. This is the revelation power has always been within reach, yet hidden under layers of distraction and misdirection. To understand the depth of the shift, imagine what happens when energy is no longer scattered but focused. A single drop of water evaporates into nothing, but when countless drops are directed with intensity, they carve canyons, they shape landscapes, they create rivers that move mountains. She works the same way. Fragmented energy dissolves into weakness. Focused energy transforms into unstoppable momentum. When every ounce of emotional, mental, and physical energy is aligned behind a purpose, the impossible begins to bend. What once felt like an immovable wall becomes a door. What once felt like endless resistance becomes the very fuel that propels forward. This is why some people appear unstoppable. It is not that they were given more than others. It is not that destiny smiled uniquely on them. It is that they learned the art of reclamation. They understood that energy was too precious to waste on hesitation, too valuable to leak into distractions, too powerful to be buried under self-doubt. They refused to allow fear to consume it. They refused to let excuses drain it. They harnessed it, directed it, and demanded that it serve their vision. And in doing so, they tapped into a level of strength that most never realized they already carry. The revelation of power is not a mystery. It is a decision. A decision to stop scattering energy in places where it does not belong and to channel it fully into growth, creation, and purpose. The moment that choice is made, the ordinary dissolves. Energy that once fueled worry now fuels action. Energy that once fed fear now feeds courage. Energy that once kept the past alive now builds the future. Every cell begins to vibrate differently. Every thought carries new clarity. Every step feels like momentum. This is not imagination. It is transformation. Most will never experience this because they underestimate their own energy. They convince themselves that life is tiring, that they are weak, that power belongs to someone else. They cling to the illusion that they need external permission to rise. But the revelation remains unshaken. Power does not arrive from the outside in. It surges from the inside out. The key is ownership. The key is responsibility. The key is claiming what has been buried under excuses and awakening what has been asleep for too long. When this truth is embraced, life is no longer a matter of survival. It becomes creation. The shift is undeniable. You stop asking for permission. You stop begging for change. You stop waiting for luck. Instead, you command your life with energy that cannot be broken. Every action carries weight. Every choice echoes with purpose. Every moment becomes fuel for the next. This is the revelation. The energy you have been searching for has always been yours. The power you thought was missing was never gone. The clarity, the strength, the resilience, they were only waiting for you to stop scattering, stop leaking, stop giving away what was meant to build you. And the moment you choose to reclaim it, you become unstoppable. For too long, life has been shaped by invisible patterns, habits of thought, habits of emotion, habits of energy that dictate every decision, every reaction, every result. These patterns form silently. They slip into place so subtly that most people never notice them tightening their grip. They rise each morning and move through the same motions, speak the same words, think the same thoughts, and wonder why nothing ever changes. Days blur into weeks, weeks blur into years, and years dissolve into regret. The tragedy is not that life is hard, but that most live it without ever realizing they are trapped inside a pattern that was never theirs to begin with. Patterns are powerful, but they are not destiny. They are the product of repetition, the result of choices made over and over until they no longer feel like choices at all. Doubt becomes automatic, hesitation becomes instinct, procrastination becomes identity, the brain adapts, the body adjusts, and before long the cycle feels permanent, but permanence is an illusion. What was built can be broken, what was repeated can be replaced. What feels unchangeable can be shattered the moment the decision is made to disrupt the pattern. The truth is uncomfortable, but liberating every limitation in life is tied to a pattern. The lack of confidence, the endless waiting, the fear of taking risks, it all stems from rhythms repeated so often that they feel natural. Yet natural does not mean right. Normal does not mean unbreakable. The very moment awareness is brought to these cycles, the cracks appear. Suddenly, hesitation is no longer invisible. It is seen. Doubt is no longer sitting as exposed. Fear is no longer destiny. It is revealed as choice. And what is seen can be broken. But breaking a pattern requires violence against comfort. It requires interrupting the flow that feels familiar and demanding something greater. It feels like swimming against a current, like pulling free from chains that have grown into the skin. The body resists. The mind protests. The emotions scream for safety. The familiar feels easier because it demands nothing. But the familiar is also the cage. And the only way to rise beyond it is to choose discomfort over ease, growth over repetition, and transformation over safety. Consider the endless cycle of hesitation, the inner voice that whispers, wait until tomorrow, you're not ready yet, maybe later. That voice has been rehearsed for years and it feels convincing. But what happens when, instead of waiting, action is taken immediately? The cycle is broken. The voice loses its power. The brain begins to rewire, associating action with strength instead of fear. Each time the cycle is disrupted, the old pattern weakens and the new one strengthens. This is the essence of transformation, not sudden miracles, but deliberate interruptions that dismantle the chains of habit. Energy plays the central role in this process. Old patterns thrive on wasted energy. They feed on overthinking, on reliving the past, on fearing the future. They grow stronger each time energy is surrendered to them. But when energy is reclaimed and redirected, the foundation of these patterns crumbles. Fear starves. Doubt withers. Procrastination loses its grip. The very fuel that once kept the cycle alive is now used to build a new one, a pattern of courage, a focus of relentless momentum. The beauty of this truth is that one break is all it takes to begin the shift. One act of courage. One moment of defiance against hesitation. One refusal to obey the old rhythm. In that instant, proof is created. Proof that the cycle is not unbreakable. Proof that the pattern is not permanent. Proof that change is not only possible, but inevitable. When energy is claimed, that proof becomes the spark, and that spark becomes the fire that reshapes everything. The world will try to pull you back into the old patterns because the familiar feels safer to others as well. They will remind you of who you used to be, of what you used to accept, of how you used to live. But you are no longer bound to that identity. Breaking the pattern means breaking the story. It means stepping outside the role you've been repeating and refusing to play small any longer. It is a rebellion not just against habit, but against every force that taught you to settle. This is not an easy path. It demands awareness, discipline, and persistence. Old patterns do not disappear quietly. They fight to survive. But every time they are resisted, every time they are denied, every time they are replaced with new action, their hold weakens. Soon what once felt impossible becomes instinct. Action becomes natural. Courage becomes automatic. Growth becomes the new rhythm, and life no longer drags forward. It surges. The chains of limitation were never made of steel. They were made of repetition. And repetition can be rewritten. The question is not whether the patterns can be broken. The question is whether the will to break them is strong enough. The energy shift has already begun, and with it comes the power to destroy every cycle that ever kept you small. There is a moment after the old patterns begin to crack when something long buried begins to stir. At first, it feels like a flicker, subtle, almost fragile, like a spark struggling to breathe. But if it is nurtured, if it is fueled, it grows. That spark becomes a flame. That flame becomes a fire. And that fire consumes every lie that once kept life dim. This is the awakening of inner fire, the surge of raw, undeniable energy that transforms not just what is done, but who one becomes. The inner fire is not created from the outside. It is not given by others, not granted by circumstances, not delivered by fortune. It is uncovered, not received. It has always existed, hidden under years of doubt, buried beneath the weight of hesitation, suffocated by the comfort of old habits. But the moment energy is reclaimed, the flame bursts through. It roars to life with a force that cannot be silenced, demanding to be fed, demanding to be used. And when it awakens, everything changes. The body feels at first strength seems to multiply, not because muscles grew overnight, but because energy is no longer wasted on hesitation. The heaviness that once made every step a burden dissolves, replaced by momentum. Fatigue that once lingered like a shadow becomes fuel for movement. The body begins to respond to the fire inside, aligning itself with the surge of power that is no longer being leaked away. Then the mind feels it. Thoughts that once spiraled into endless loops of doubt and confusion begin to sharpen. The fog lifts, replaced by clarity that cuts like a blade. Decisions no longer drag into endless overthinking. They become swift, certain, decisive. Where uncertainty once paralyzed, confidence now commands. Ideas flow faster, solutions appear clearer, and the vision for the future grows brighter. The mind becomes a weapon, no longer dulled by fear, but sharpened by fire. And then the spirit awakens. This is the deepest transformation. The spirit expands beyond the cages that once confined it, beyond the smallness that once defined it. A sense of purpose floods in, an unshakable knowing that life was never meant to be endured but commanded. The spirit begins to radiate outward, sending signals to the world that cannot be ignored. It is not arrogance, not pride. It is presence. A force that says, without words, I will not be broken. I will not be denied. Energy is contagious, and when the inner fire awakens, the world feels it. People respond differently. Opportunities seem to emerge. Obstacles that once blocked the path no longer stand unmoved. They bend, they shift, they crumble. The environment reflects the fire within, because reality itself begins to align with energy. Where once there was resistance, now there is momentum. Where once there were closed doors, now there are openings. Where once there was silence, now there is an echo of strength. The awakening of inner fire is not calm. It is a storm. It rips apart excuses, burns through limitations, and clears the debris of everything false. At times it feels overwhelming, as though the force within is too great to contain. But that intensity is not to be feared. It is to be embraced. It is proof that life is no longer lived on borrowed energy, but on the full current of power that has always been waiting. This fire demands expression. It cannot remain idle. It drives action. It compels creation. It fuels movement. The one who feels it cannot sit still in mediocrity. They are pulled forward, pulled higher, pulled into places they once thought were unreachable. The fire insists on growth. It insists on transformation. It insists that life no longer remain the same. But with this awakening comes responsibility. Fire can build or destroy, can create warmth or burn everything in its path. The awakened fire must be directed, must be channeled into purpose. Left unfocused, it can turn into recklessness. But when harnessed, when aimed with intention, it becomes unstoppable. Every action becomes infused with energy, every step charged with momentum, every goal fueled by relentless determination. The awakening is not temporary. Once the fire is lit, it does not return to ashes. It becomes part of identity, woven into every choice, every thought, every breath. And with each act of courage, with each step into discomfort, with each moment of growth, the fire grows brighter, hotter, more uncontainable. It spreads into every corner of life until mediocrity no longer has a place to hide. This is not imagination. It is transformation at its rawest level. The body, mind, and spirit aligned, burning with purpose, moving with intensity. No force outside can match it, because no force outside can extinguish what burns within. The inner fire is proof of what was always possible, proof of the energy that was always there, proof that life bends to those who refuse to be dimmed. The awakening of inner fire is the turning point where survival ends and true living begins. It is the force that shifts existence from passive to powerful, from hesitant to relentless, from ordinary to extraordinary. It is the moment where fear loses its grip, where doubt loses its voice, where excuses lose their weight. And in that moment, the fire declares you are no longer bound. You are no longer waiting. You are no longer small. You are limitless. Every transformation carries a cost. The energy shift is no exception. In fact, it is the most demanding price you will ever pay. And this truth is why so many stop before they even begin. They want the fire without the burn, the breakthrough without the breaking, the power without the price. But life does not work that way. To awaken this energy, to step into a life beyond limits, something must be surrendered, and not just something, everything that once kept you small. The first price is comfort. Comfort is the enemy of growth, the silent killer of potential. It whispers that it is better to stay safe than to take risks, better to remain where you are than to step into the unknown. It disguises itself as peace, but it is only stagnation dressed as security. Transformation tears that illusion apart. It pulls you out of comfort and forces you into the raw edge of challenge. It demands that you face uncertainty, face fear, face the discomfort of growth. And this is painful because the human heart craves familiarity. But comfort cannot coexist with greatness. One must be sacrificed for the other. The second price is excuses. For years, excuses have been companions, soft shields that protect against responsibility. They explain why things didn't work out, why goals were abandoned, why dreams were left behind. But when the energy shift takes place, excuses can no longer be tolerated. They are stripped away, leaving only truth. And truth is heavy. Truth reveals where effort was lacking, where fear was chosen over courage, where time was wasted instead of invested. To stand in truth is to stand naked before destiny with no one left to blame. The excuses die and responsibility takes their place. This is not easy, but it is necessary. The third price is identity. The old self cannot walk into the new life. The version of you that clung to fear, that bowed to hesitation, that accepted less than it deserved, that version must be left behind. And letting go of identity is like letting go of skin. It feels like death because in many ways it is. It is the death of the old, the familiar, the predictable. And the mind resists it with everything it has because it fears annihilation. But on the other side of that death is rebirth. On the other side of release is expansion. The price is heavy, but the reward is limitless. Fourth price is isolation. Not everyone will understand the shift. Not everyone will support it. Some will resist it because your fire will expose their ashes. Some will pull away because your transformation will remind them of the chains they still wear. You may lose people along the way, friends, companions, even loved ones who cannot handle the force of your change. And this hurts because humans are wired to belong. But belonging to the wrong crowd is another chain. Transformation demands that you walk alone if necessary, until the right connections, those aligned with your fire, arrive. The fifth price is persistence. Change is not a single act, not a one-time decision. It is a daily demand, a relentless call to keep rising, keep pushing, keep refusing to fall back into the old. And this is where most fail. They begin strong, fueled by motivation, but when resistance comes, when the fire feels too hot, when fatigue sets in, they retreat. Transformation requires something greater than motivation. It requires commitment. It requires the willingness to keep going long after the initial fire is burned down to embers. It requires the discipline to feed the fire daily, even when no one is watching, even when nothing feels easy. And yet, despite all of this, the heaviest price of all is sameness. The price of staying the same is invisible until it is too late. It is the quiet despair of unfulfilled potential. It is the regret that grows heavier with each passing year. It is the ache of knowing that more was possible, but never chosen. That is the true cost of the life that could have been but never was. Compared to that, the pain of transformation is nothing. The discomfort, the struggle, the sacrifices, they pale in comparison to the torment of a life half-lived. This is the paradox. Transformation feels violent before it feels liberating. It strips before it builds. It breaks before it heals, it takes before it gives, and because of this, most turn back. They see the cost and decide it is too much. But those who endure, those who pay the price, those who burn away the false and rise through the ashes, they are the ones who taste the life that few ever know. They are the ones who walk with fire in their eyes, who command their reality, who live without chains. The price of transformation is not negotiable. It cannot be discounted. It will take your excuses, your comfort, your old self, and everything that once kept you safe. But in return, it will give you power beyond measure. It will give you clarity, purpose, freedom, strength. It will give you the life you were meant to live. The price is high, yes, but the cost of staying the same is infinitely higher. The shift is real. It has always been real. It is not hidden, not reserved, not impossible. It is here in this very moment waiting to be claimed. The only question that remains is simple, yet heavy. Will you rise or will you remain? Life bends to the energy you carry. It responds to strength. It yields to certainty. It transforms under the pressure of willpower. Every step you have taken to this point has led here, to the edge of decision, to the threshold of transformation. And now the choice stands before you like a door. One path leads back to sameness, to cycles that suffocate, to patterns that drain, to comfort that kills. The other leads to fire, to freedom, to the undeniable surge of power that changes everything. No one can choose it for you. No one can step through it in your place. The shift demands one thing, your decision. It will never be convenient. It will never feel like the perfect time. If you wait until fear is gone, you will wait forever. If you wait until comfort gives permission, you will die waiting. The moment is now, because now is all that ever exists. Each second spent delaying is energy wasted, potential buried, destiny denied. The only thing separating who you are from who you could become is action. The decision to stop leaking energy into fear and to pour it into life. This is the truth. You are not weak. You were never broken. The fire has always been inside you, waiting to be claimed. The world may have tried to bury it under lies, under doubt, under endless noise, but it never died. And the fact that you feel this stirring, the fact that these words awaken something within, is proof that the shift is already happening. You are not here by accident. You are here because the moment has come to break free. So what will you do? Will you walk back into the patterns that chained you? Will you surrender your energy once again to fear, hesitation, and doubt? Or will you demand more? Will you rise, not tomorrow, not someday, but now, with force, with clarity, with power? This is the boldness required to stand and declare that excuses will no longer own you, to claim that comfort will no longer seduce you, to decide that every ounce of energy you possess will be directed toward purpose, toward growth, toward destiny. The moment that declaration is made, not whispered, not hoped for, but declared with certainty, the shift solidifies. Life begins to bend. The universe responds. Energy gathers behind you like a storm. Do not be fooled. This is not about waiting for opportunities to appear. This is about creating them. It is not about hoping for life to improve. It is about commanding it to improve through relentless action. It is not about chance. It is about choice. The choice to rise, the choice to move, the choice to step into the fire and refuse to turn back. Understand this greatness is not accidental. Transformation is not random. Power does not fall from the sky. It is claimed, earned, demanded. It is taken by those who refuse to bow, by those who decide that life will no longer be something they survive, but something they command. The energy shift is not passive, it is aggressive. It requires defiance against weakness, rebellion against fear, war against hesitation. And that war is won the moment you declare, I will rise no matter what. And when you rise, the world will feel it. You will walk differently. You will speak differently. You will carry an energy that cannot be ignored. Doors will open not because the world suddenly changed, but because you changed. Obstacles will crumble, not because they were small, but because you became stronger. Life will bend, not because it is easy, but because your energy now commands it. This is the most powerful energy shift you've never heard of, and it is within you right now. Not tomorrow, not later, not someday now. The fire is awake. The energy is alive. The question is no longer whether you have the power. The question is whether you will claim it. So rise. Rise with fire. Rise with certainty. Rise with a force that cannot be broken. The world is waiting for the version of you that no longer hesitates, no longer apologizes, no longer hides. The world is waiting for the version of you that commands destiny with every breath. Step forward. Step into the fire. Step into the life that was always yours to claim. The energy is here. The power is here. The time is here. The only thing left is for you to rise.